And that's essentially my video. John Stockton versus Michael Jordan. Jordan is easily better, even by Tug's own standards, his own arguments, his own line of thinking, right? Jordan is easily better than Stockton.
Deep in the heart of Texas.
We're in the business of winning.
Don't bet against me.
I don't bet anyway.
Lose your life.
Got another video. Was listening in on our best guy Tug the other day, our best friend Tug. And I got a video I just put out. I called in, had his chat revolting. They wanted me more than him. Many such cases. But I was listening. I literally turned the recorder on because I couldn't believe what I was hearing, right? So first, let's set this up, right? Let's set this up with the video that I recorded, that I put out today or yesterday, depending on when I put this video out. And I asked Tug, how do you know certain players are better than others? And I use an exaggerated example, such as, I think it was Magic Johnson and J.J. Barea, correct? And then he said, well, I guess to bring it back into his world, he used an example of Robert Horry and Michael Jordan, right? And he said, well, you can say Michael Jordan is better than Robert Horry, correct? Because that's such an easy example. Well, where I was going with that, of course, he didn't let me finish, right? Because he knew I was going to destroy him live in front of his 10 viewers. Is I was going to follow up with, how do you know? What metrics do you use to know that Michael Jordan is better than Robert Horry? And getting him to admit that Michael Jordan is better than Robert Horry is already a win in our book, right? It's already pulling Tug towards us somewhat. But so I was listening to this other stream, correct? And one last thing before I get to what I heard. One thing that Tug does is he says you are unreasonable, or you are just a Michael Jordan fan, or however he puts that, right? You're the one that's out in left field if you think Michael Jordan is the GOAT, right? Essentially says you have no proof of it, you're just being biased, etc., etc., right? But, again, you're the crazy one for saying that. But, twofold on his side, right? First, he has taken the position now that because he doesn't commit to anything, because he doesn't pick a list, because he doesn't say who the GOAT is, he quite literally thinks that makes him smarter than everybody, right? As if it's that easy to be smart. As if it's that easy to just be, this is how you get a high IQ. You just don't commit to anything, right? Obviously, it's not true. Makes no sense. The only reason he doesn't do that, right, is because then he would contradict himself. If you had any sort of standard, then you would realize that Michael Jordan meets those standards 9 times out of 10. Right? That's why he never commits to anything. And again, he thinks this makes himself smart, but it really doesn't. It just makes you a coward. It means that you know that what you're saying is so ridiculous that you can't really start to put together or build a foundation or commit to anything, because you would hurt your own argument at the end of the day by being proven wrong on your own standards if you committed to something. He also thinks that if you commit to things, it means you're going to automatically contradict yourself, which is not true. You can have outliers or a line of thinking, a line of logic, and largely if you follow that 90 to 99% of the time, right, then people will understand you, right? That is a level of consistency that people will respect and understand, correct? So there's that. And again, the other part of that is he thinks you're crazy or biased if you pick Jordan, but he's totally within the realm of normalcy or legitimacy, even though he says Jordan is not top 100, correct? So, again, I'm not saying anything people don't know. Tug is an emotional child. He's just baiting people in the clickbait, which is fine. But he's being an absolute disgrace to basketball. And so that's why I make these videos, and it's fun, and I don't care, and they're easy to make. He acts like I spend a lot of time doing these. I don't. They're quite easy. You get in front of, I know my points. I'm consistent, so it's really easy for me to just get on here and spitball and keep the same line of logic and reasoning and understanding and then just put out a video. It's really not that hard. Again, for him, it might be hard because he's got to keep up with all these, this facade of how bad Michael Jordan is, and he's constantly trying to not commit to anything that will disprove him wrong, right? But anyways, I digress. So in this clip I got, right, 3 things. We finally get Tug to commit to something. He says that statistics are the biggest factor, should be weighted the most, or are the most important, right? Essentially, they're the biggest thing you can look at, right? He then says that, as I said a second ago, he says that Jordan is not top 100, and also says that John Stockton is better than Michael Jordan. That's why I have him up on the screen here.
LeBron James.
Oh, man.
100?
100? No, I put him top 5 easily.
Oh, okay, all right.
I'm
not sure if Michael Jordan should be top 100.
Well, I distinctly remember you saying John Stockton is a better player, and I had to really laugh at that one.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I actually gave you lots of reasons, and I guess you pretty much ignored everything.
No, I didn't. You named a bunch of stats that he compiled, but
that's the game.
That's
actually what he did in the game.
It's what he did, but that cannot be the end all be all.
Of course. Oh, it's not the end all be all. No, I would never say statistics tell the whole story or that's all you need. I'm saying if you're going to rank players, statistics is the most reliable thing. And if you disagree, then anything else you go by is going to be less reliable.
I think statistics would be the most reliable, but there's context to it.
Okay, and again, obviously I'm going to disagree that statistics, if you say they're not the most reliable, but if you disagree...
They are. I think they can be, but
okay.
They're not 100% though.
Okay, sure, but even if you say what you just said, anything else that you're going to go by is going to be less reliable. Anything.
But I can tell you why I think Jordan is better than John Stockton.
Did you hear what I said?
I did.
So if you heard what I said, that anything else is less reliable, then that means either you agree, which means you shouldn't go by anything else, or you disagree, which means you're denying the truth.
I don't think it's 100%. That's what I'm telling you.
So give me something that would be more reliable than statistics.
I think you have to use a lot of things when you're talking about.
I'll make it easy for you. Give me one thing.
Let's see, Jordan.
No, I'm talking about more just general. What's more reliable than statistics?
When you get into these debates, you can simply say, okay, this guy's a better defender, this guy's a better scorer. Fine, you can talk about that. But when you're getting into these all-time debates, you have to look at every facet of it.
I'm agreeing with you, but you know what else you have to do? You'd have to be able to back it up.
I can give you my what I think. I can tell you I think Jordan's a better player. I can tell you all the things he does better than John Stockton.
If I say Robert Horry is better than Michael Jordan, that's my opinion. What does that mean?
I would love to hear the argument on that.
That's fine, but no, it's my opinion, right? It
is your opinion.
So
I can't. If you were really, really convinced he's better, then I really don't have nothing to say to you.
Right, exactly, because I can't back it up.
No, you can't.
Right, so apply the same logic to the other guys.
Okay, so we'll do John Stockton and Michael Jordan.
Okay, so let's try this again. So if you get something that's better than statistics, can you give me something better than statistics?
I think statistics, when you're compiling statistics, it depends on what team you're on. It depends on your role on the team. John Stockton.
I mean, Corey, I've asked you more than once. Do you have something that's more reliable than statistics? You're giving me vague and things.
No, I'm telling you that you need more than statistics.
No,
if you're just going to use statistics.
I understand what you're saying. Believe me, I'm hearing you, man. I'm asking you, what is more reliable than statistics? Remember, I said just give me one. You don't have to give me a bunch.
In these debates, they're probably the most reliable thing, but they're not the only reliable thing.
Okay, so if statistics are, well, you said they're not the only reliable thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so other things are you saying other things are more reliable? Or
no, I'm saying other things are needed in the discussion.
Okay, so just to make sure, let's go one at a time. Are you saying other things are more reliable than statistics, or anything is more reliable than statistics?
No, not really.
Okay, are you saying anything is as reliable as statistics?
Yeah, I don't know if I could say as reliable, but different players play in different situations.
Just to clarify, was that a yes or a no?
I think I don't think I can come up with something that's as reliable.
Okay, so are you then saying?
What I can tell you is that they can be deceiving because there's different systems, there's different coaches, there's different styles of play.
No, we agree. We agree. Statistics are not 100% reliable. That's not.
So they can be deceiving. They can be.
No, but you're changing the topic. We're not disagreeing. I'm agreeing with you. Statistics are not 100% reliable. I'm asking you. My first question was, are they more reliable? You said no. Then my second question was, are they as reliable? You kind of seem like yes and a no. Which one was it?
I don't think there's something as 100% reliable.
Okay.
But
there's a but. Go ahead.
But you have to talk about everything, man. You can't just focus on one thing.
We'll get into it. Let's establish things. I think one of the reasons that when people just have disagreements, they don't establish and clarify. So let's make sure in other words, what I'm saying to you, Corey, before we go to where we disagree, let's find out where we agree. Can we do that?
Yes.
Okay, so you say statistics are not as reliable. Sorry, you say there's nothing else as reliable as statistics?
No, probably not. But I think statistics are kind of like,
Not 100% reliable. We got
yeah,
that.
I think
We're on that. We're on the same page. No reason to go down that road again.
they can be sexy at times, but they're not everything.
You don't have to tell me that again. We're on the same page. We agree. So there's, you said I think, so I want to establish. Could there be something else as reliable as statistics?
I guess it's possible. I don't have one off the top of my head.
Okay, so for right now, would you say for right now there's nothing that you know of that's as reliable as statistics?
No, not really.
No, you won't say that, or no, there isn't.
I won't say that. No, not
Okay.
right now.
Okay, so then the last question is, are there other things less reliable than statistics? Or that's a bad question. Sorry. Are there things that you go by that are less reliable than statistics?
Yeah, but the things that I'm going by, like the things when you're talking about Michael Jordan versus John Stockton, you can't just put statistics on that. That is.
So again, remember, you don't have to convince me that statistics are not 100% reliable. We're on the same page, man. I'm agreeing with you.
I understand.
Okay. So, are there other things that you go by that are less reliable than statistics?
Yeah, I guess that's a possibility.
But you're not sure?
I'm not really sure. I know the points that I'm going to make, but I don't sit here and debate which one is more important.
Well,
I don't think about it like that.
Isn't that important to know if they're reliable or not?
No, it's important for me to know what I think because I like basketball and I watch basketball.
Then you might as well just say to me, Robert Horry is better than Michael Jordan. That's my opinion.
I think I know what you're getting at.
If we can't go by, like you said earlier, it's not science. We can't go by facts, and we can't go by what's more reliable, and we can't go by what's a claim. At the end of the day, you're just basically telling me this is what I believe, and that's all there is to it.
Okay, so if we just talk statistics, that's obviously where you want to go.
No, it doesn't have to. I'm open-minded. If you say to me, I got something more reliable, okay, show me.
I don't need to have something more reliable. I just need to put everything in my basket and roll with it.
So we're going to get into that argument, correct? But let's get into the stats thing. I largely agree with this on its face, right? But what Tug is essentially saying, right? The only way you could take this angle that stats are the not the end all be all, but they are weighted the most or the most important, or you have to look to them first, right? And then to make the argument that Stockton is better is essentially he is arguing that an accumulation of stats or a compilation of stats that you have compiled over your career mean more than anything else, or are the single biggest thing that means more than any other singular thing, correct? Which is just not true, right? There are context and nuance to stats, which we're going to get into here, right? So let's just keep that in mind, right? Again, Jordan, and again, he told me in that last stream I put out that he doesn't rank all-time greats, right? He takes the bold claim that you can rank obvious players, but you can't rank players who are like in the top 25 or something like that, right? And anyone, even the biggest Jordan hater, right, would definitely never say that he's not top 100, right? Even the biggest Jordan haters would never say Jordan's not top 100. That is such an audacious claim. It is so ridiculous, right? And you just know Tug's full of shit. But again, Jordan is definitely a top 25 player. I don't think anyone would actually ever argue that he's not, right? And so even Tug has already contradicted himself, which I know he hates doing, right? He's got to keep up this act. He has put John Stockton ahead of Jordan at the end of the day. 2 all-time greats, right? At least 2 people in the Hall of Fame, right? And Tug thinks that Jordan's the most overrated Hall of Famer and most overrated player of all time, essentially. They're both in the Hall of Fame. And so he ranked 2 all-time greats, and he said Stockton is better than Jordan, right? The only way you could make this argument is to go with the accumulation of stats narrative. Now, why this is not true and why it doesn't hold up in court, right? First of all, we're talking about players who at least have like a 5, 10, 15-year window of dominance, right? So I'm going to bring up 2 players, and the reason why I'm bringing them up is twofold, right? Let's take some guys like Bill Walton and Derrick Rose, correct? There are many, many players who have accumulated, especially at their position or just overall, have accumulated more stats than those 2 guys, right? More so for Bill Walton than Derrick Rose, because Derrick Rose has continued to play, which he should be given a lot of credit for that. Although he was never the same, it's still impressive that he's been in the NBA as long as he has after getting hurt. as many times as he did. But Bill Walton also put together a decent career too, but he was much more limited than what Derrick Rose has been after their injuries. But anyways, there are many players at their position or just overall who have accumulated more stats than those guys, right? But those guys each won an MVP, right? Derrick Rose unfortunately never won a ring, but Bill Walton won a ring. They've been on all NBA teams, etc., right? Those couple years in the league that they had where they were essentially the best player or top 5, right? There are many other players who have accumulated more stats than them, but those two guys are better than 90% at their best, right? At their best, at their peaks, they are better than 90% plus of the guys who have come through the NBA, right? So that is not why stats are as important as Tug would like to think, or you have to give them proper context, right? Secondly, why I bring those two guys up. When we're making this all-time argument, unfortunately, you have to have at least like a 5 or 10 year window, right? And this goes back to when I argued the LeBron James fan. And I essentially said right from the beginning, this is going to be an argument of accumulated stats versus peak and dominance, correct? And if you were to sit down NBA fans, NBA players, etc., right? And you would ask them, what means more to the game? What is more impressive? What has a more lasting impression or means more in the, long span of basketball history, right? Would you rather have a 15 or 20 year career where maybe you get a ring, maybe you get one MVP, you maybe have 5 All-NBAs or something like that. Well-respected career, right? You put together some nice rankings on an all-time list. Or would you want a 5, 10, 12-year career where you just dominated, right? 4, 5, 6 rings, 3, 4, 5 MVPs, 10 All-NBAs, right? Made the All-Star game almost every year. You were named on an All-NBA team. You won a Defensive Player of the Year. You were top in averages at your position or certain stats, et cetera, right? Which one do you think means more? Which one do you think is more impressive, right? Without a shadow of a doubt, right? People would take the peak and the dominance, right? And I really don't think there's much denying that. Again, it kind of goes back to the old saying, how good was your good, right? Out on your day, at your best, where did you rank among these other players in the NBA, the best players in the world, right? Where did you rank, right? That is more meaningful to fans and players themselves, even GMs, owners, the media, whoever, right? I think a vast majority of them would take the dominance and the peak for 5-10 years over a respectable 15 to 20 year career, correct? Also acknowledging that at the beginning and end of your career, right, in terms of the longevity, you're gonna, it's gonna be a peak, right? So you'll have Dirk's a great example, right? My favorite player, right? I would chop 5 years off his years totals if it means that he could win one more MVP and another ring, if that makes sense, right? I think just about anyone would take that trade or understands what I'm trying to say. Does that mean maybe he falls out of the top 10 of the all-time scoring list? Probably, but that's okay. I'd rather have the dominance, getting to the top of the mountain, the leaving no doubt about how good you were, correct? And being able to say that at one point I was hands down, or at least hands down the best player, or at least a top 5 player for 5 or 10 years, correct? And so when Tug makes this argument of Stockton versus Jordan, he's essentially, in a nutshell, saying that Stockton's all-time steals and assists essentially counteract everything else Jordan has done, right? There's really no other stats that he has accumulated more than Jordan on that, right? Jordan has more points, he has more rebounds, he has more steals, he has more blocks, correct? And he has more in everything else in terms of accolades and achievements and acknowledgments and rings and stuff like that, right? We're not going to get into that. We're just going to stay on stats though, correct? So even if Stockton is number one in steals and assists, correct? And that essentially is what he's going to lean on to say, well, Stockton is better than Jordan, correct? Again, if you average out Jordan's, just to reiterate this point, this is one of my favorite points about peak versus dominance, right? If you average out Jordan's points, assists, and steals, he is top 9, 10, 11 in assists. He's number one in steals, and he's number one in points over LeBron currently by like 4,000, right? Again, his pace and his averages, which, by the way, average is a raw stat. That is a stat, right? Tug would probably make the argument that analytics don't count. I would actually say that there are certain analytics which actually fine-tune statistics even more, right? Points per game is a nice stat, but again, we want to know how good was your good, right? When you were on the floor, what did you actually produce, right? Which is why I actually think per 36 and per 48, in terms of your stats, you could argue is actually a clearer picture of what you did than a per game average, right? Now, we'll just keep it simple for this one. We'll just use total stats and per game stats, right? That's about as basic as it gets with stats, correct? So, again, just going back on that, I would argue that those per 36 and per 48, you could say is actually a better view into what you did or achieved while you were on the floor. Again, it all takes context, right? If you're a guy who comes off the bench like a Jason Terry or a Crawford, right? And kind of your role is instant offense or something like that, I could see where the per 36 and per 48 could get thrown out of whack a little bit. But of course, this is with the nuance and the context that you're a starter. You're at least the first or second best player on your team, right? We're comparing greats here. So we want to keep as many of the factors and variables as similar as possible. So that needs to be taken into account, right? But for the most part, we're talking about a GOAT discussion, all-time great discussion, right? And he's going to say Stockton is better than Jordan. And largely he can only say that over two categories, and that's steals and assists. And again, during their time, you can see here, right, their overall stats. Jordan averaged more steals per game than John Stockton did. One of the statistics that John Stockton is the best at, he is the best at all time, right? That Tug would like to hang his hat on why Stockton is better. Jordan averaged more steals than Stockton, right, when he played per game. So in that stat, I would argue Jordan is actually better at steals than John Stockton, correct? Again, Jordan made 9 first-team All-NBA defensive selections. He won a Defensive Player of the Year. He has more blocks, averaged more blocks. He averaged more steals. He has and averaged more rebounds, defensive rebounds, if you just want to keep it on the defensive end, right? So again, Stockton, having an all-time accumulation of steals is not as impressive in this context when comparing Jordan and Stockton, right? The one thing he has on Jordan, or the two things, we'll get into assists here in a second. One of the two things that he has on Jordan in terms of steals, I would say almost without a shadow of a doubt, Jordan was better than Stockton at steals. He just was. He was a better defender. In terms of guarding the 1, 2, or 3 position, Stockton might guard the 1 or 2 position, right? Mainly the 1. Jordan was just simply better. There's just really no arguing that, right? And then if we go to the next one, right, assists per game, Stockton wins that one, right? He doubles up his assist. He has more all-time assists. Of course, he's number 1. But again, people act like Jordan was a slouch with assists. If you just average out Jordan's career, right, he's essentially 9, 10, 11, somewhere in that range, possibly top 10 in assists all time, right? So think about it. Let's just say top 15, right? I'll be generous. Let's say Jordan's top 15 in assists all time. You know what I mean? Are people really going to sit there and hang their hat on Jordan not being a good passer? Probably not, right? So again, averaging 5.5 assists for your career as a score first kind of guy, right? A scorer shooting guard, correct? That is not bad. That's pretty good, to be honest, right? And the fact that Stockton had Karl Malone, he was second in all-time points when he retired, definitely inflates your assists a little bit. The fact that Karl Malone was the focal point of just about every defense they played night in, night out, that also frees up Stockton, makes it a little easier on him. Whereas the reverse is that Jordan has a almost, I think, double or triple usage rate, and Stockton has double the turnover rate, right? So that also needs to be taken into account. As many assists as he had, he also had a lot of turnovers, but yet Jordan had a higher usage rate, correct? And so again, for assists, I understand Stockton wins that category, right? Both in averages and all time. But then that's it. That's literally it, right? The all-time steals do not impress me as much when someone averages more steals than you. And again, going back to Derrick Rose and Bill Walton, right? We're not talking about 1 or 2 year offs here, 1 or 2 year windows here. We're talking about 5, 10, 15-year windows, correct? You look at the amount of games they played. Stockton essentially played, 430 more games than Jordan did, correct? So again, you just average out Jordan's averages. He would have more all-time stats than Stockton. It is not as impressive to me to stick around. I don't want to say stick around as if he was, not playing good towards the end of his career or anything. But the fact that you simply just played more games and accumulated more stats does not impress me as much as a guy who won 5 MVPs, 9 first-team all-defenses, 10 first-team all-NBAs, defensive player of the year. It doesn't impress me as much as a guy who, when he was in the league, was just head and shoulders better than you, right? By almost all accounts, except for assists. That's really the only one that Stockton is better at than Jordan. And if we want to go with all-time stats, right? I know I already said it, but I'll say it again. We're going to go with averages and all-time, right? Points, averages and all-time Jordan. Rebounds, averages and all-time Jordan. Steals, Stockton has the all-time, Jordan has the average. Assists, Stockton has the average and the all-time. Blocks, Jordan has the average and the all-time, correct? I mean, it's just really, it's not even close, even if you want to go by a statistical comparison like Tug says he does, right? It still makes no sense. It makes no sense whatsoever. And if you want to get into shooting percentages, they're very close across the board. Jordan was never that good of a three-point percentage shooter. Again, 33% for his career, considering he shot less than 2 a game for his career, essentially 1 a game for his career. Again, that's not that big of a difference, like a 6% difference. Okay, I guess. Field goal percentage, about a 2-point difference, 2 percentage point difference. Jordan edges him out in free throws. Efficiency, a 3 percentage difference. And again, you have to remember Jordan's the main guy, right? Stockton was not the main guy on his team in terms of what defenses are looking at, correct? So a guy who's getting you 30 a game but shoots 3% less, you will take that 9 times out of 10, considering he's getting 17 more points than Stockton, right? You will take that. That is not easy to find all the time. And of course, Jordan wins in box plus minus and in value over replacement, right? So again, I know these are not stats, but again, to say that someone is better, you have to take the entire picture into account. Because even when we go to stats, Jordan wins, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He wins 4 out of 5 categories, right? Or he wins, what would it be? 3.5 out of 5 if you want to. That would be 7 out of 10 if you wanted to take the 5 categories, averages, totals, and we go down the line. Jordan wins 7 out of 10 of the statistical categories. I'm sorry, Tug, but it just makes no sense. The math does not add up. These statistics do not add up whatsoever. Both in the Hall of Fame, Jordan 6 rings. Again, first team All-NBA, right, is a 10-year peak where you get 10 first team All-NBAs versus a guy who gets 4 or 5 more years on you, but yet only gets 2 first-team All-NBAs. You're going to tell me that guy is better than the guy who during a 10-year period was on the first-team All-NBA every year? it doesn't add up, right? All NBAs, they're the same. Again, Jordans are all first team, though. All defense, right? If you're going to say, steals or what have you for Stockton, right? Well, on the all defensive selections, he's not, it doesn't look like he's stacking up. MVPs, obviously Jordan. Again, a defensive player of the year. Looks like Jordan, and even all-stars, right? Again, Stockton stuck around, or not stuck around, I don't mean to use that word, but he played longer and had a longer career and played more games than Jordan, and yet he still has less all-stars, right? And all-stars for, all-time greats, right, is not the hardest thing to make, right? I'm not saying an all-star selection is the end-all, be-all, but they're a pretty good gauge of guys who are, top 15 in the league, right? Top 12 in the league, and getting selected, right? So, there's that too. I know it doesn't matter as much though. So let's go back to their totals, right? So these are their totals, right? He wants to argue just total stats, right? Points, Jordan. Blocks, Jordan. Steals and assists go to Stockton with the caveat that Jordan averaged more steals. Rebounds, Jordan. So again, he's winning 3 of the 5 categories all time, right? So it's just hard to understand what he's even trying to argue. I don't, even if I'm gracious and I just give you assists and steals, Jordan beats him in the other 3 of the 5 categories, right? And he's got so much more accomplishments. His peaks were so much higher. His dominance was so much greater. And you can't really make excuses for Stockton either, because he had all the opportunity, right? Second best player on his team by most standards. Let's just say they're even. Him and Malone are even, right? He's got another all-time great. I think most people would put Malone and Stockton ahead of Scottie Pippen and Rodman. In my opinion, I guess I would have to see some polling on that. But those 2 players were definitely better than Pippen, right? So he's got the benefit of that. He's definitely not the main guy on offense, correct, for the most part. And Jordan is, correct? And I'll go down here to their, again, usage rate for Jordan, 33.3 compared to 18.9 for Stockton. But yet the turnover rate is double for Stockton. And he has the ball, or is being used at about half the clip, right? So, it's just, this makes literally no sense. It makes no sense. Again, Tug is just talking out of his ass. He just hates on Jordan so hard. He hates on Jordan so hard that he makes the most ridiculous claims and he can't back them up. And that's essentially my video. John Stockton versus Michael Jordan. Jordan is easily better, even by Tug's own standards, his own arguments, his own line of thinking, right? Jordan is easily better than Stockton. So that's my video. I just wanted to get that out, and I'll see you guys on the next one.